Welcome back to ProductX, the show where we explore unknown tech and decode future unicorns. I'm Reena. Today we're diving into a fascinating shift in global climate capital. Nairobi-based Catalyst Fund just closed their second climate resilience fund at $30 million, backed by heavy hitters like the IFC and the Shell Foundation. Vivian, want to kick us off?
Hey, Reena. Thanks for having me. I'm Vivian, a senior angel investor at PreAngel Fund, and I've been tracking emerging market climate flows for years. This Catalyst Fund deal is honestly one of the most interesting things I've seen lately.
Nolan, your turn.
Hey everyone, I'm Nolan, a former CTO from one of the big Silicon Valley tech companies. I spent years building large-scale systems, so I'm really curious about how these teams are pulling off engineering miracles in environments with basically no infrastructure.
So here's the puzzle. For years, climate VC money went to EVs and carbon capture in Silicon Valley. Now, the IFC and Shell Foundation are pouring tens of millions into early-stage African startups. Vivian, what's driving this?
The core shift is from mitigation to adaptation. In the US and Europe, climate tech is about reducing emissions, which is great, but not urgent. In Africa, climate change is already devastating crops and supply chains. These aren't nice-to-have solutions, they're survival tools. That's why development finance is willing to take early-stage risks that pure commercial capital wouldn't touch.
Right? And from the engineering side, these teams have to build completely differently. You can't just spin up cloud instances when your farmers are on 2G connections with spotty power. The technical constraints actually force a kind of brilliance.
Nolan, you mentioned constraints. Can you walk us through what MazauHub actually does technically?
Sure. MazauHub uses AI for soil intelligence, but they can't ship massive models to the cloud. What they do is model quantization, which is basically compressing a 32-bit neural network down to 8-bit integers. That drops the memory footprint by over 75%. The model runs locally on a cheap smartphone, no internet needed. In the middle of a Tanzanian field with zero connectivity, a farmer gets fertilizer recommendations instantly.
And that's the beauty of the venture builder model. Catalyst Fund doesn't just write a check. They deploy people to help iterate products, find talent, close sales. It's like they're building the entire ecosystem from scratch.
Exactly. KeepItCool, for instance, their IoT gateways face daily power outages. The system uses asynchronous communication, only transmitting compressed data during brief signal windows. It's brutal engineering that would never fly in a data center, but it works.
Let me push back on this, though. Isn't there a ceiling to these solutions? Can edge AI really scale in Africa?
Actually, I think the ceiling argument misses the point. Africa is leapfrogging traditional infrastructure just like it did with mobile payments. They're skipping centralized power grids entirely and going straight to distributed AI-driven microgrids. That's a $100 billion market opportunity. The startups solving problems today will have the playbook for climate resilience everywhere.
And from a pure engineering perspective, Africa's becoming the ultimate stress test. Code that runs stably in Kenyan heat will work anywhere. These teams are writing hyper-efficient code out of necessity, and that becomes IP they can export back to developed markets dealing with their own extreme weather.
Interesting. So you're saying these constrained environments actually create stronger technology?
Absolutely. The frugality forces elegance. What takes 1,000 servers in California takes a microcontroller in Nairobi, and that's actually harder to pull off.
I'll add one thing on the capital side. The blended finance structure here is clever. Development institutions absorb the earliest risk, then private capital flows in once the model is proven. It's essentially using public money to de-risk markets that commercial investors would otherwise skip entirely.
Okay, I want to dig into that model a bit more. Vivian, how does the venture builder approach actually work in practice?
Think of it as concierge investing. In Silicon Valley, you pitch, you get money, you're on your own. In Africa, many founders haven't even seen a proper term sheet or dealt with legal compliance. Catalyst Fund brings in BFA global experts who work side by side with teams for months, sometimes years. They help with product iteration, hiring, sales pipelines. It's capital plus hands on operational support.
And honestly, that's reflected in the code. When you have mentors pushing you to optimize for extreme constraints, you end up with fundamentally different architectures. It's not just surviving, it's thriving within boundaries that would make most Silicon Valley engineers quit.
Let's shift gears. Nolan, I have to ask about the model quantization you mentioned. For our listeners who aren't engineers, can you make that intuitive?
Sure. Imagine you're trying to fit a whole library into a tiny backpack. Model quantization is like summarizing every book into a single paragraph while keeping the key ideas. You lose some nuance, but you gain speed and efficiency. For a farmer in Tanzania, getting a good enough answer instantly beats waiting hours for a perfect answer from the cloud.
And from the investment side, that's exactly what makes these companies defensible. The engineering capability becomes a moat. Copying the business model is easy. Copying the ability to run AI on a $50 phone in the middle of nowhere? That's hard.
Okay, let's do a quick lightning round. Quick-fire answers, everyone. First question. What's the most surprising thing about African climate tech?
How fast these teams move despite the infrastructure gaps.
The raw ingenuity of the engineering solutions.
Second, if you could fund any climate startup in Africa right now, what's the sector?
Off-grid cold chain for food preservation. Massive waste problem that technology can solve.
Distributed energy management. It's the backbone of everything else.
Third, biggest misconception about African tech?
That it's inferior or derivative. It's actually cutting edge out of necessity.
That the constraints are limitations. They're actually forcing innovation.
Fourth, favorite tech term from today's discussion?
Leapfrogging.
Frugal innovation.
Last one. One word describing Africa's climate tech future?
Unstoppable.
Resilient.
Vivian, in one sentence, what's the takeaway from today's conversation?
Climate adaptation in Africa isn't just an investment thesis. It's the proving ground for technologies that will define how humanity survives escalating environmental crises.
Nolan?
The hardest engineering constraints create the most powerful technology, and Africa's building it right now.
Thanks to Vivian and Nolan for the deep dive. If you want to see where capital and architecture intersect to create the next generation of climate solutions, stay with ProductX. We'll see you next time.